Morning light streamed through the towering glass windows of Parker Enterprises headquarters on the 45th floor in the heart of Manhattan. Benjamin Parker, a 42-year-old white American billionaire, sat behind a gleaming walnut desk, his icy blue eyes scanning numbers on a screen. With neatly combed blonde hair and a tailored gray suit, he radiated the authority of a CEO who had conquered every boardroom. Parker Enterprises, his financial empire, had just closed another $6 million deal with partners in Singapore. Success, as always, came so easily that it wasn't exciting. But Benjamin hadn't always been this way. There was a time when he'd been more idealistic, with a more open heart, especially during the summer 8 years ago when he met Naomi Johnson, a gifted Black American painter. With her radiant smile and warm brown eyes, Naomi had made him believe that life was more than just numbers. But ambition had pulled him to Tokyo, and Naomi, unwilling to live in his shadow, had walked away. Since then, Benjamin had buried the pain in his work, building an invisible wall around his heart. The ring of the desk phone pulled him from his thoughts. Mr. Parker heard his assistant Sarah's voice through the intercom. "A walk-in guest is asking to see you. A little girl. She says it's urgent." Benjamin frowned. His schedule was meticulously arranged. No room for surprise visits. "A little girl? Who is she?" he asked, curiosity creeping into his voice. Sarah hesitated. "She says her name is Amara Johnson, about 7 years old. She's, very determined, sir." Benjamin's frown deepened. Johnson. The name stirred a faint memory, but he brushed it aside. "Send her in," he said, not sure whether curiosity or astonishment was leading him. The heavy wooden door opened, and a petite girl stepped inside, no taller than his desk lamp. Amara Johnson wore a navy blue dress, her curly hair neatly braided into 2 pigtails. Her large, round eyes gleamed with resolve, and she clutched a green folder like a treasure. She stopped before the desk, lifted her chin, and looked Benjamin straight. "Good morning, sir," Amara said, her voice clear and surprisingly confident for a child. "My name is Amara Johnson. I'm here to apply for a job." Benjamin blinked. He was utterly speechless for the first time in 15 years of running the company. A child applying for a job? He stifled a smile and motioned for Amara to sit in the leather chair opposite him. "A job, huh?" he asked, his tone gentle but laced with curiosity. "Why do you need a job, young lady?" Amara climbed onto the chair, her tiny feet dangling above the floor. She placed the folder on the desk and pushed it toward Benjamin. "This is my resume," she said earnestly. "I can clean and organize papers, and I'm good at staying quiet when grown-ups talk." Benjamin opened the folder to find a handwritten page in a careful, childlike script. The corners of the paper were decorated with colored pencil drawings, a house, a flower, and a family of 3 holding hands. He skimmed through Amara's experience, helping mom wash dishes, caring for plants, and being good at 2nd-grade math. He looked at the girl, caught between amusement and something more tender. "You've prepared this very thoroughly," he said softly. "But why does a little girl like you need a job?" Amara bit her lip, her confidence wavering slightly. She lowered her head, her voice quieter now. "My mom is sick. Her medicine is costly. Last night, I heard her crying when she thought I was asleep. I want to help her." Her words cut through Benjamin like a blade. He felt something foreign, a pain he'd long buried deep. "Your mom?" he asked cautiously. "What's your mom's name?" Amara looked up, eyes shining. "Naomi Johnson. She's a painter, but can't draw much anymore because her hands shake." The name Naomi hit Benjamin like a thunderclap. Her image rushed into his mind. Long curly hair, a ringing laugh, and vibrant paintings she once explained with a burning passion. Could it be her? He looked closer at Amara, recognizing familiar features, a small nose, a determined expression. Then, a thought struck him like lightning. How old is Amara? How old are you, Amara? He asked, voice husky. 7 3/4, she replied proudly. 7 years old. Benjamin calculated quickly. If she was 7, and Naomi left him 8 years ago, could it be? He shook his head, trying to stay composed. What about your father? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Amara shrugged calmly. I don't have a father. Mommy says he had to go far away before I was born. The innocence in her answer made Benjamin feel like the floor had vanished beneath him. He leaned back in his chair, mind reeling. If Amara was his daughter, why hadn't Naomi told him? Why had she let him go 8 years without knowing? Mr. Parker, are you okay? Amara asked, her voice filled with concern. She tilted her head, her wide eyes studying him as if he were the one needing help. Benjamin forced a smile. I'm fine, Amara. I was thinking about your mom. Did you come here by yourself? Amara nodded proudly and explained that she had taken the city bus, convinced the driver to help her find the building, and told security she was Mr. Parker's niece to get in. Benjamin couldn't help but laugh, a rare sound in this office. You're smart, he said, genuinely impressed. But inside, a storm of emotions brewed. He wanted to help Amara and help Naomi, but he knew Naomi wouldn't accept it easily if it were truly her. I can't hire a 7-year-old, Amara, he said gently, watching her eyes dim with disappointment. But I have an idea. My company can commission some of her paintings if I meet your mother. Amara's eyes lit up. Really? You'd do that? Benjamin nodded, his mind already racing ahead. He had to see Naomi. He needed the truth. How about today? He asked. Amara nodded eagerly. Mom's resting at home. I'll take you. Benjamin pressed the intercom. Sarah, cancel all my appointments for today and prepare the car. Sarah sounded surprised. The whole day, sir? That's right, Benjamin said, eyes still on Amara. She stood up, clutching her green folder, her smile radiant like sunlight. As they stepped into the elevator, her tiny hand brushed his, an innocent gesture that made Benjamin's heart tremble. A single sentence from this little girl had cracked the wall he'd spent 8 years building. And as the elevator doors slid open, Benjamin knew that this day would change his life forever. Benjamin's sleek black sedan glided through the bustling streets of Manhattan, heading toward Harlem, where Amara and her mother lived. Amara sat beside him inside the car, her nose pressed against the window, her large, round eyes taking in the city from a fresh perspective. She said, I've never ridden in such a fancy car, her voice brimming with excitement. Benjamin smiled, but his mind was in turmoil. The name Naomi Johnson still echoed in his head, dragging back memories he had spent the past 8 years trying to bury. He glanced at Amara and noticed her arched eyebrows and determined gaze, features that resembled her mother, but also stirred something within himself. Where do you and your mom live, Amara? He asked gently, trying to mask his tension. Garden View Building, Section C, Apartment 407, Amara answered proudly. Mom says it's not fancy, but the light there is good for painting. Benjamin nodded, picturing a modest apartment in Harlem, far removed from his penthouse in the financial district. Does your mom know you came to see me? He asked, though he already suspected the answer. Amara shook her head. Mom wouldn't let me. She says we don't need pity, just a fair chance. Amara's words made Benjamin tighten his grip on the steering wheel. Naomi, with her unyielding pride, had always rejected help, even when they were together. He remembered their arguments and how Naomi insisted on making her way without relying on his money or connections. But now, knowing she was seriously ill, he felt a new kind of pain, a mix of helplessness and an unfulfilled responsibility. When the car pulled up to Garden View, an old apartment complex with red brick walls covered in ivy, Benjamin felt the stark contrast to his world. Amara led the way, her steps light and quick on the stairs. The elevator had long been broken. Benjamin felt out of place in his expensive suit as he climbed to the 4th floor, his breathing starting to labor. "You take these stairs every day?" he asked, half joking, half admiring. Amara nodded. "Mom says it's good for your health, but she gets exhausted climbing." At the door of apartment 407, Amara unlocked it and called out loudly, "Mom, I'm home! I brought someone to help us!" Benjamin stood behind her, his heart pounding. The small apartment opened before him, bathed in natural light from large windows. On the walls hung Naomi's colorful paintings, scenes of Harlem, portraits of children, and emotional abstract pieces, neatly arranged. An easel stood quietly in the corner, covered in dust, a silent witness to talent suppressed by illness. "Amara, where did you go without telling me?" Naomi's voice came from the next room, weak but full of worry. She stepped out, one hand on the doorframe, her figure thinner than Benjamin remembered. Her long, curly hair now had streaks of gray, and her hands trembled slightly as she tried to steady herself. But her deep brown eyes, still full of life, locked onto Benjamin. She froze, her breath catching. "Benjamin," she whispered, her voice laced with shock and anger. "Why are you here?" Sensing the tension, Amara looked back and forth between them. "Mom, I went to Mr. Parker's office to apply for a job. He wants to help you." Naomi closed her eyes and breathed deeply, clearly trying to contain her emotions. "Amara, go to your room," she said firmly. Amara hesitated, concerned, but finally walked down the hallway, though Benjamin doubted she would stop listening. As Amara's door closed, Naomi turned to Benjamin, her eyes flashing with fury. "How dare you come here? How did you find us?" Benjamin raised his hand, his voice calm. "I didn't. Amara found me. She rode the bus alone, got past security, and walked into my office to apply for a job, because her mother was sick." Naomi stepped back, clutching her chest as if his words were a blow. She muttered, "She's smarter than I thought," then looked straight at him. "What do you want, Benjamin?" He stepped closer, choosing his words carefully. "I want to help Naomi. Amara told me you're ill and that the medicine is expensive. I can help with that." Naomi shook her head, her voice sharp. "We don't need your pity. I've managed for 8 years and continue to do so." Benjamin felt a flash of anger, but he held it back. "This isn't pity. It's responsibility. Amara, she's 7, right?" Naomi raised her head, eyes defiant. "Yes. And you left 8 years ago. You're good at math, Benjamin. Do the calculation." Her words sliced through him, confirming what he had suspected. He felt the ground tilt beneath him. "She's my daughter," he said, not as a question, but a statement. Naomi said nothing, her eyes glistening with mixed emotions, pain, pride, and a hint of regret. "You made your choice," she finally spoke, her voice trembling. "You chose the company, the ambition, the $1 million deals. I didn't want me or my child to be a burden in your world." Benjamin shook his head, stepping closer, though Naomi raised a hand to stop him. "You didn't give me a chance, Naomi. You disappeared. When I returned from Tokyo, I only had a letter saying you couldn't live in my shadow. Not a single word about Amara." Naomi sat on the couch, her hands shaking as she hugged her knees. "If I had told you, what would you have done? Have you given up Tokyo, refused London, or forced me into a life I didn't want?" Her questions were sharp, forcing Benjamin to confront himself. 8 years ago, He might have tried to fix everything with money and power. But now, looking at Naomi, frail yet unyielding, all he wanted was to make amends. Before he could answer, Amara's voice called from the hallway. "Mom, Mr. Parker is my dad, isn't he?" She stood there, her eyes bright, not with innocence, but hope. Naomi looked at Benjamin, then at her daughter, her eyes softening. "Amara, this is complicated," she said, her voice gentler. But Amara stepped forward, taking her mother's hand. "I don't want you to cry anymore. If Mr. Parker can help, why won't you let him?" Benjamin knelt in front of Amara at eye level. "I'd like to see you and your mom more often, Amara. Maybe I can be part of this family if your mom agrees." He looked at Naomi, his eyes sincere. Naomi took a deep breath, clearly battling her emotions. "I'm not promising anything," she said at last. "But you can come back for Amara." Benjamin nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. As he left the apartment, Harlem's sunlight fell across his shoulders, but inside, he knew this journey was only beginning. Amara had opened a door he didn't think he needed, and now he would have to face past mistakes to build a future, not just for himself, but for the little girl and the woman he had never stopped loving. The sunset cast a vivid orange glow over Brooklyn, lighting the street where Benjamin Parker had once stood, in front of a small gallery 8 years ago. He was 34 at the time, just beginning to build the Parker Enterprises empire, his blonde hair tousled by the summer breeze, his blue eyes gleaming with ambition. He walked into the art exhibition, not out of a love for paintings, but on a consultant's advice that art is a good investment. In the cozy space of the gallery, surrounded by vibrant canvases, he met Naomi Johnson, a Black American painter whose smile made his heart skip a beat. Naomi, 30 years old, stood beside a vividly abstract painting, her brown eyes glowing with passion as she explained the meaning behind each brushstroke. "It's not about understanding," she told Benjamin, when he admitted he only saw a mess of colors. "It's about feeling. What do you feel when you look at it?" Benjamin, a man accustomed to numbers and strategy, was stumped by the question. But instead of walking away, he stayed and listened as Naomi shared the stories behind her work. Harlem street corners, children's dreams, and the pain of the community she had grown up in. They talked late into the evening, and when the gallery closed, Benjamin invited her to dinner. He said to learn more about art, but they both knew it was just an excuse. The following weeks became a whirlwind of emotion. Benjamin and Naomi became inseparable. They wandered through flea markets, debated the meaning of a graffiti mural on a brick wall, or sat in Naomi's tiny Harlem apartment. She paints, and he read financial reports. Naomi challenged him to see the world through emotion, while Benjamin mesmerized her with his determination and sweeping vision. "One day, I'll take Parker Enterprises to the top of the world," he once told her, his eyes alight. Naomi smiled, though there was a flicker of concern in her gaze. "And what about me, Ben? Where will I stand in that world?" That question became the first crack. When Parker Enterprises received an offer to expand to Tokyo, Benjamin saw it as the perfect opportunity to prove himself. He asked Naomi to come with him, promising to provide everything: an art studio, a comfortable life. But Naomi shook her head, her voice firm. "I don't want to follow, Ben. I need to create my world through my art and community." Benjamin, swept up in ambition, couldn't grasp her fear of losing her identity or becoming a shadow in the life of a successful man. Their final argument occurred in Naomi's apartment, surrounded by unfinished paintings. "If you go to Tokyo, I can't go with you," she said, her tears falling silently. "And if you stay, I won't wait," Benjamin replied, his voice bitter. The next day, he boarded the plane, leaving a silent Naomi and a short letter. I can't live in your shadow. Back in the present, Benjamin sat in his car, his eyes distant as he stared out the window. Memories of Naomi played like an old film, vivid, yet painful. He had thought he'd moved on, that success would fill the void she left. But now, knowing about Amara, he realized how wrong he'd been. Naomi hadn't just gone. She had taken a part of him with her, a part he hadn't even known existed. Inside the Garden View apartment, Naomi sat on the sofa, her hands trembling as she held a cup of tea. After being told to go to her room, Amara stood just behind the door, quietly listening. Naomi said that you don't get to show up after 8 years and pretend everything can be fixed. Her voice restrained, but sharp. Standing a few steps away, Benjamin felt anger and regret rise within him. You didn't give me a chance, Naomi. You disappeared. You never said anything about Amara. How was I supposed to know? Naomi looked down, her fingers tightening around the cup. When I found out I was pregnant, you were in Tokyo. I called, but you didn't answer. I wrote letters, but all I got was silence. I thought you had chosen your path. Benjamin shook his head, his voice hoarse. I didn't know, Naomi. If I had known, I would have... He stopped, uncertain of what he would have done. 8 years ago, would he have given up Tokyo? Would he have chosen Naomi and Amara over everything else? He couldn't say. From behind the door, Amara stepped out, her voice small but steady. Mom, if Mr. Parker is my dad, why didn't you tell me? I want to know my dad. Naomi turned to her, eyes filled with pain. Amara, I just wanted to protect you. Your father. He had a different life. Benjamin knelt in front of Amara, his heart tight. I didn't know about you, Amara, but now I do. And I want to be here if your mom lets me. Naomi took a deep breath, clearly torn between pride and her love for her child. I'm not promising anything, Benjamin, she said, trembling, but you can come back for Amara. We'll start from there. Benjamin nodded, feeling like a door had opened just a sliver. He looked at Amara. She gave him a shy smile, and at that moment, he knew he would do whatever it took not to lose this chance. As Benjamin left the apartment, Harlem's light had begun to fade, but a small glimmer of hope had ignited inside him. Naomi, with her unshakable pride, and Amara, with her innocent courage, had brought him back to a part of himself he thought he had lost. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in 8 years, Benjamin felt he was finally walking in the right direction. Evening in Harlem carried a cool breeze that slipped through the window of Naomi Johnson's small apartment. A warm glow from a desk lamp lit up the dining table, where Naomi, Amara, and Benjamin Parker sat around a modest pasta and salad dinner. Amara's wide eyes sparkled as she talked excitedly about her day at school, her voice animated as she described the painting she had made in art class. My teacher said, I drew the prettiest tree in class, she said proudly, a bit of tomato sauce still on her lips. Naomi smiled faintly, her hand trembling slightly as she held her fork, an increasingly obvious symptom of rheumatoid arthritis. Benjamin, dressed in a simple navy blue shirt, listened to Amara with a level of attention rare in a man used to commanding boardrooms. This dinner resulted from a fragile agreement between Benjamin and Naomi after their tense reunion the week before. Benjamin had asked to visit Amara regularly, and Naomi reluctantly agreed for her daughter's sake. But the atmosphere remained heavy. Naomi kept her distance, her gaze wary whenever Benjamin spoke. On the other hand, Benjamin tried to stay gentle, though he could feel the invisible wall Naomi had built. A wall of pride and old wounds. I can paint a picture for Mr. Parker, Mom, Amara suddenly said, pulling both adults out of their thoughts. Like the one you painted for that gallery when I was little, remember? Naomi nodded, her eyes softening as she looked at her daughter. Do you remember that? I painted a scene of Harlem for a gallery in Brooklyn. Benjamin tilted his head, curious. I remember that painting. The red rooftops under the sunset, right? You said it was a story about where you grew up. Naomi looked at him, surprised he remembered. That's right, she said, her voice softer. I didn't think you'd remember. Sensing the change in mood, Amara chimed in again. Mr. Parker, Mom says she can't paint much now because her hands hurt. But if she gets better, she'll paint the whole world. Right, Mom? Naomi lowered her head, hiding her pain at her daughter's innocent words. Benjamin felt a tightening in his chest. He wanted to say he could help, pay for doctors, medicine, anything. But he knew Naomi would reject it. Instead, he turned to Amara. What do you like to paint most? He asked gently. Amara thought for a moment, then answered, I like painting families. But I don't know how to draw a dad because I've never seen mine. Her words, so casually delivered, pierced through them like a blade. Naomi set down her fork, her hand trembling. Amara, are you finished eating? It's getting late, she said stiffly. But Amara shook her head, her eyes firm. Mom, I want to know. If Mr. Parker is my dad, why doesn't he live with us? I saw you cry, and I know you're sad. I want us to be happy, like my friend Maya's family at school. Naomi closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Amara, it's not that simple. Your father and I, we chose different paths. Benjamin looked at Naomi, then at Amara, and a new ache was swelling in his chest. He knelt beside Amara, eye level with her. Amara, I want to be here, for you and your mom. But your mother's right. There are things only grown-ups can work through. I promise I'll try, okay? Amara nodded, but her eyes were still filled with hope and worry. I don't want Mom to cry anymore, she whispered. After dinner, while Amara went to her room to do homework, Benjamin and Naomi silently stood in the kitchen washing dishes. Eventually, Naomi spoke, her voice low but sharp. She doesn't understand, Benjamin. I left because I wanted Amara to have a stable life, not swept up in your world of endless meetings, flights, and broken promises. Benjamin dried his hands and turned to face her. I was wrong to let you go, Naomi. But I'm not the same man I was 8 years ago. I want to be part of Amara's life, and yours, if you'll let me. Naomi shook her head, pain flickering in her eyes. I can't trust you, not after everything. And I don't want Amara to hope and only be disappointed. Benjamin nodded, accepting the rejection, but not giving up. Let me prove it. I'll come back, every week, until you believe I mean it. Naomi didn't respond, but her eyes wavered ever so slightly. That weekend, Benjamin took Amara to Prospect Park in Brooklyn, a trip Naomi reluctantly agreed to. Beneath the green canopy, Amara ran and played, chasing squirrels while Benjamin sat on a stone bench, watching her with a strange mix of love and regret. Mr. Parker, why do you look sad? Amara suddenly asked, sitting beside him with a branch in her hand. Benjamin was surprised. I look sad. I'm happy to be here with you. Amara shook her head thoughtfully. I saw you looking far away like Mom does when she thinks I'm not watching. She talks about you sometimes, that you have a big company. But she didn't want me to know too much, because she was afraid I'd be sad if you didn't return. Amara's words squeezed Benjamin's heart. He lifted her onto his shoulders. I'm not going anywhere, Amara. I promise. And I'll do everything I can to make your mom smile like you want. Amara grinned, wrapping her arms around his neck. I believe you. But you have to make Mom happy, okay? She likes sunflowers and jazz. I hear her playing jazz music when she paints." Benjamin laughed, memorizing every detail. When he brought Amara home, Naomi was standing at the door. Her expression softened slightly at the sight of her daughter's smile. "Thank you for today," she said quietly. Benjamin nodded. "I'll be back, Naomi. Not just for Amara, but for both of you." As he walked away, Amara watched from the window and waved. Inside her small heart, a dream had begun to form. A dream of a family where her mother no longer cried, and her father was always there. And inside Benjamin, a new resolve was born. He knew the road ahead would be hard, but Amara's eyes had given him a reason to keep walking. Warm yellow light from iron-caged lamps hanging from the ceiling bathed the table in a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn. Benjamin Parker, Naomi Johnson, and Amara sat facing one another. The scent of toasted bread, tomato sauce, and basil lingered in the air, blending with soft jazz music from the speakers. Benjamin, in a casual navy blue shirt, far from his usual tailored suits, tried to appear relaxed, but his eyes betrayed a quiet nervousness. Across from him, Naomi, dressed in a simple beige dress, sat upright, her hands resting on her lap to mask the trembling caused by her worsening rheumatoid arthritis. Amara, glowing in a lemon-yellow dress, was the table's heart, munching on bread while excitedly telling them about a dog she'd seen in the park. The dinner had been Benjamin's idea, an effort to build a relationship with Amara and Naomi after a series of emotionally charged encounters. He chose a small restaurant, avoiding the luxury he knew Naomi would refuse, hoping the intimate atmosphere might ease the wall between them. Naomi had agreed, mainly because Amara had begged her to, but her gaze remained guarded, as if one wrong word could shatter the fragile balance they'd built. "Mr. Parker, have you ever had a dog?" Amara asked, her eyes gleaming. "I saw a fluffy one in the park today and want one." Benjamin chuckled, leaning toward her. "When I was a kid, I had a dog named Max. He loved chasing tennis balls so much that he ruined my mom's lawn." Amara burst out laughing, dropping a piece of bread. Naomi, though silent, gave a small smile, her eyes softening as she looked at her daughter. The mood gradually lightened, thanks to Amara's cheerful innocence. She spoke about school, her art teacher, and her dream of becoming a painter like her mom. Benjamin listened intently, occasionally glancing at Naomi, looking for signs that her defenses might be lowering. He tried to bring her into the conversation. "Naomi, you once said you wanted to start an art class for kids in Harlem. Do you still think about that?" Naomi looked up, surprised that he remembered a detail from 8 years ago. "I used to," she replied cautiously. "But now, it's not realistic. My health doesn't allow it." Her words cast a slight shadow over the moment. Sensing the shift, Amara quickly jumped in. "Mom, you'll get better. Please teach me to paint like you taught me to make cookies." Naomi gently brushed her daughter's hair and gave her a faint smile. "I'll try, sweetheart." Benjamin saw an opening, but chose his words carefully. "Naomi, if you need help, doctors, medication, anything, I can support you. It's not charity. I want you to be healthy for Amara and yourself." Naomi tightened her grip on her napkin, her eyes flashing with anger. "Benjamin, I've said this before. I don't want pity. Amara and I have managed on our own for 8 years. We'll keep doing so." Her voice was sharp, but trembled slightly, revealing the exhaustion behind her pride. Benjamin took a deep breath, steadying himself. "This isn't pity, Naomi. Amara needs her mother, and I want to make up for what I missed." His words were sincere, but Naomi turned away, shaking her head. You don't understand. I don't want to owe you anything." Amara, seated between them, stopped eating and looked from one to the other with wide eyes. "Mom, Mr. Parker wants to help. Why won't you let him? For example, when I help you tie your shoelaces, you say that's not pity. That's love." Her innocent words were like a breeze, easing the tension. Naomi looked at her daughter, her gaze softening, but she didn't answer. Benjamin seized the moment and turned to Amara. "You're right, Amara. Sometimes, helping is how we show we care. I want your mom to be well, just like you do." Dinner continued, with Amara guiding the conversation back to happier topics. She told a story about when she and her mom accidentally burned a batch of cookies, making both adults laugh. Benjamin took the opportunity to share an old memory. "Naomi, do you remember the time we tried to cook together? You poured an entire salt container into the soup, and I still had to pretend it was good." Caught off guard, Naomi burst out laughing. A rare smile lit up her face. "You're the one who dumped the salt in, Benjamin. You even said it was a family recipe." The moment was brief but warm, and all three felt like a family for a few seconds, even if just for a fleeting instant. When dessert arrived, a fragrant plate of tiramisu, Amara let out a long yawn, her eyelids drooping. Benjamin offered to drive them home. Naomi didn't object this time. In the car, Amara fell asleep against her mother's shoulder, her breathing slow and even. Benjamin glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Naomi stroking her daughter's hair, her expression thoughtful. "She's a special girl," he said quietly, "just like her mother." Naomi stared out the window, her voice soft. "She's stronger than I am." Amara sees everything in simple terms: love, kindness, forgiveness. "I don't want her to hope too much and only be disappointed." Benjamin nodded, understanding her fear. "I won't let Amara down, Naomi, and I want to prove that to you. Let me start small, taking Amara to the park, having dinners like this, whatever you're comfortable with." Naomi said nothing, but he could feel her hesitation beginning to waver. When the car pulled up to Garden View, Benjamin carried the sleeping Amara into the apartment and laid her on the bed as Naomi quietly directed. Naomi looked at him at the door, her expression layered with emotion. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "Amara had a great time." Benjamin smiled. "So did I. I'll call and retarget you to you. Let me know." Naomi nodded slightly. Not a promise, but enough to send him home with a spark of hope. Benjamin stood at the window overlooking the city in his cold penthouse that night. The image of Amara's smile and the look in Naomi's eyes haunted him. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he felt like he was no longer living just for the company. He was living for something greater, a family he had never dared to dream of. Morning light filtered through the curtains of the Garden View apartment in Harlem, casting a pale glow on Naomi Johnson's dust-covered easel. Naomi stood in front of the mirror, struggling to tie her hair with trembling hands, each motion a painful challenge due to her rheumatoid arthritis. Amara, already dressed in her school uniform, buzzed around, helping her mother with her coat. "Mom, Mr. Parker's taking me to the museum today, right?" the girl asked excitedly. Naomi nodded, though her eyes revealed conflict, grateful for Amara's happiness, but fearful of letting Benjamin step deeper into their lives. Benjamin Parker had become a more frequent part of Amara's life in the 2 weeks since that dinner at the Italian restaurant. He showed up on weekends, taking her to the park or reading books with her, small gestures filled with meaning. Naomi, though still guarded, couldn't deny the glow on her daughter's face whenever Benjamin arrived. Yet she also felt her health deteriorating. Sharper joint pain, days when even holding a cup of water ended in spills. She was scared, not just of her illness, but of Amara losing the mother she depended on. At Parker Enterprises headquarters in Manhattan, Benjamin sat at his desk, though his mind was far from the numbers on the screen. He had just canceled a meeting with London investors to take Amara to the Natural History Museum, which left his assistant Sarah stunned. "Sir, that's a $10 million deal," Sarah reminded him, concerned. Benjamin gave a faint smile. "They can wait. Some things are more important." That simple sentence marked a profound shift in a man who once put his company above all else. That afternoon at the museum, Amara dashed from the dinosaur exhibit to the Ocean Life Hall, tugging at Benjamin's hand with endless excitement. "Look at this whale, Mr. Parker. It's bigger than our whole apartment," she squealed. Benjamin laughed, feeling his heart open with every word she spoke. But the warm moment was interrupted by his ringing phone. His mother, Eleanor Parker, a stern 68-year-old woman, calling from Connecticut. "Benjamin, I hear you've been spending time with some child." "And her mother," Eleanor said in a severe tone. "Who are they? You can't let strangers disrupt your life." Benjamin took a deep breath and led Amara to a quiet corner before answering. "Mom, the girl is Amara, and her mother is Naomi Johnson, the woman I once loved. Amara might be my daughter." Eleanor paused, then spoke coldly. "Naomi Johnson? That painter from Harlem? Benjamin, you know what our family stands for. She's not suitable." Her words made Benjamin grip the phone tighter. "Amara is your granddaughter, whether you accept it or not. I'm not abandoning her." He ended the call, feeling a mix of anger and resolve. When he returned to Amara, she sketched a dinosaur with colored pencils. "Mr. Parker, are you mad at someone?" she asked, worried. Benjamin knelt and smiled. "Not mad at you, Amara. Grown-ups don't always understand each other." Amara nodded and handed him the drawing. "For you, so you'll smile more." That small act melted his frustration. For Amara, he realized, he would face anyone, even his mother. That evening, Benjamin arrived at Naomi's apartment carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, the flowers Amara had told him her mother liked. Sitting on the sofa with a cup of tea, Naomi looked surprised. "Amara told me," Benjamin explained, placing the bouquet on the table. Naomi glanced at the flowers, her expression layered. "She talks too much," she said, though the corners of her lips curved slightly. Benjamin sat down, his tone serious. "Naomi, I know you don't want my help, but Amara needs you to be healthy. I found a specialist in Boston who treats rheumatoid arthritis. I can arrange for you to see him." Naomi shook her head, her voice sharp. "Benjamin, I don't need you to fix my problems. I'm doing my best with the doctors and insurance I have." But her voice trembled, revealing her fatigue. Benjamin leaned forward, his gaze sincere. "I don't want control, Naomi. I want you to have the best chance for Amara." Naomi looked at him, then at the flowers, clearly battling with herself. "I'll think about it," she said finally, her voice soft. "But don't expect me to say yes right away." From her room, Amara snuck out and hugged Benjamin. "You brought flowers for Mom. She loves sunflowers." The girl turned to Naomi. "Mom, Mr. Parker's being here is a good thing, like a family." Her words left the adults silent. Naomi stroked her daughter's hair without answering, but her eyes wavered slightly. Benjamin, sensing the subtle shift, stood. "I'll be back, Amara. And Naomi, call me if you need anything." As Benjamin left the apartment, Harlem's streetlights cast a soft glow on his path. He thought of Eleanor and her disapproval, Naomi and her guarded heart. But Amara's smile and the sunflowers on Naomi's table were enough to keep him going. He was no longer just the man who built a company. He was now a father, a man seeking redemption, and he wouldn't stop until he earned the trust of both mother and daughter. Morning at Brookside Elementary in Brooklyn buzzed with laughter as students prepared for Family Day, a yearly event where children shared stories and pictures of their families. Amara Johnson, dressed in a blue sweater and gray uniform skirt, stood at the front of the class, holding a self-drawn picture. 3 people, her mom, herself, and a man she called Mr. Parker, standing under the sun. She excitedly told her classmates about her mom, Naomi, a talented painter, and Mr. Parker, who took her to museums. But when she mentioned that her mother and Mr. Parker lived in separate homes, a boy named Liam blurted out, "Real families don't live like that. Parents are supposed to live together. If they don't, it means they don't love each other." Liam's words struck like a blade. Amara, usually confident and radiant, suddenly felt her throat tighten. Giggles rippled through the room, and curious eyes turned toward her. "My house isn't like that," Amara stammered, on the verge of tears. Unable to bear the shame and confusion, she ran out of the classroom, leaving her drawing on the table, her heart aching with a question she had never dared to ask. Why isn't my family normal? Back at the Garden View apartment in Harlem, Naomi was struggling with a flare-up of joint pain, trying to make coffee but dropping the spoon. The phone rang, and Principal Martinez's concerned voice came through. "Ms. Johnson, there's been an incident with Amara. She ran out of class during the Family Day presentation. Can you come to the school immediately?" Naomi's heart pounded as she grabbed her coat, every movement painful. She called Benjamin, her voice shaky. "Benjamin, Amara's in trouble at school. I need you to come." Benjamin immediately stood up in the middle of a high-stakes meeting with Japanese investors at Parker Enterprises. "Cancel everything today," he told his assistant Sarah, not noticing the stunned look on her face. He drove straight to Brookside, his thoughts in turmoil. He had tried to be Amara's father in the past weeks, but now he wondered if it had been enough. When he arrived at the school, he found Naomi already there, her face drawn tight, hands trembling as she gripped the arm of a chair in the counseling office. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. Naomi shook her head. "No, but this isn't about me. Amara needs us." They were led into the counseling room, where Amara sat curled in an oversized chair, clutching her backpack, eyes red and swollen. When she saw Benjamin and Naomi, she burst into tears and ran to her mother. "Mom, Mr. Parker, I'm sorry," she sobbed. Naomi stroked her hair gently. "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. What happened?" Benjamin knelt beside her at eye level. "Tell us, Amara. We're here for you." Amara wiped her tears, her voice shaky. "Liam said a real family lives together. He said if parents love each other, they don't live in 2 different houses. He said that you and Mr. Parker don't love me enough to live together." Her words hit both Benjamin and Naomi like a punch to the chest. They exchanged a glance filled with pain and guilt. Naomi pulled Amara close. "Liam doesn't understand our family, sweetheart. Every family is different." But Amara shook her head, her gaze determined. "I want us to be like Maya's family. Her mom and dad live together, eat dinner, and sleep in the same house. Why can't we be like that? I don't want Mom always to be tired, and I want Mr. Parker to live with us." Her question rang out, undeniable, and silence filled the room. Benjamin felt his heart tighten. He looked at Naomi and saw the fear in her eyes. Fear of losing her independence and letting Amara hope, only to be disappointed. "Amara," Benjamin said, his voice low but firm, "if you want us to live together, I'll do everything possible to make that happen. But your mom and I need time to figure things out." Naomi's eyes were wary. "Benjamin, Don't make promises we're not sure we can keep, she whispered. He nodded, but turned back to Amara. I'm only asking what you want, Amara, and I promise I'll try. Amara nodded, tears still falling. I want us to live together in a big house. Mom can paint, Mr. Parker can work, and I can have my room. I don't want to keep going back and forth anymore. Her simple yet powerful words made both adults realize that their current arrangement, 2 homes and 2 lives, was quietly hurting their daughter. After speaking with the school counselor and principal, Benjamin and Naomi drove Amara home, to Naomi's apartment since it was her scheduled day. In the car, Amara fell asleep on her mother's shoulder, emotionally exhausted. Benjamin drove in silence, occasionally glancing at the rearview mirror. She's more hurt than we thought, he said softly. Naomi nodded, her voice faint. I've always wanted to protect Amara. But maybe I confused her. I was afraid I'd lose myself if I let you in too far. Benjamin pulled up in front of Garden View and turned to her. I don't want to take anything away from you, Naomi. I want us to build something, together, for Amara, and maybe for us. Naomi looked at him, her gaze unreadable. I don't know if I can trust you, Benjamin, but Amara, she needs both of us. She paused, then added, we could try small steps. Benjamin nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. When he carried Amara upstairs and gently laid her on the bed, he saw Naomi standing in the doorway, the sunflowers from last week still fresh on the table. We'll figure it out, Naomi, he said to Amara. Naomi didn't reply, but for the first time, her eyes held something other than rejection. As Benjamin stepped out into the Harlem moonlight, he knew the crisis had changed everything. Amara had forced them to face the truth. And now, the path ahead was no longer a matter of choice, but of responsibility. The dim afternoon light filtered through the windows of the Garden View apartment in Harlem, casting a pale glow across the tired face of Naomi Johnson. She sat on the sofa, her trembling hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea, her empty gaze fixed on nothing. Beside her, Amara, wearing her favorite blue sweater, was drawing a picture on the coffee table, quietly humming a cheerful tune. But Naomi wasn't truly hearing it. In her mind, the doctor's voice from that morning's phone call still echoed. Ms. Johnson, the current therapy isn't working as we'd hoped. Your rheumatoid arthritis is progressing faster than expected. Please come in immediately to discuss other options. The words sliced through the fragile hope Naomi had clung to for months. She had endured worsening pain, days when she couldn't hold a paintbrush or even tie Amara's hair. But she had told herself the medication would help, that she would push through for her daughter. Now, the harsh truth left her feeling as though she were sinking. She looked at Amara, her heart aching at the thought of her daughter possibly losing her mother. The doorbell rang, snapping Naomi out of her thoughts. Amara jumped up, thrilled. Mr. Parker's here, she squealed, running to open the door. Benjamin Parker stepped inside, holding a box of chocolate chip cookies, Amara's favorite. He wore a simple gray shirt, but the concern in his blue eyes was apparent when he saw Naomi. Naomi, are you okay? He asked, setting the cookies on the table. Naomi nodded, but the trembling in her gesture betrayed her words. I'm fine, she replied weakly. Just a long day. Benjamin sat across from her as Amara cheerfully opened the cookie box. Since Amara's school incident the week before, when she'd expressed her desire for the whole family to live together, Benjamin had become a regular presence in their lives. He had treaded lightly, never pressuring Naomi. But today, something felt different. Naomi, he said, his voice low but steady. What's going on? You don't look fine. Naomi glanced at Amara, who was nibbling on a cookie and still drawing, then turned back to Benjamin. She took a deep breath, her voice shaking. "The doctor called this morning. My treatment isn't working. The disease is getting worse, and they want me to come in immediately to try something new." Her words landed like a bombshell, leaving Benjamin momentarily frozen. He looked at Naomi and saw the fear in her eyes, not just for herself, but for Amara. "What did they say about the new treatment?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Naomi shook her head, her tears welling. "It's more substantial, more expensive, and has more side effects. I don't know if I can start all over again." For the first time, Naomi's unshakable pride crumbled. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. "I'm tired, Benjamin. I am tired of being strong and proving I can handle everything on my own. I'm scared Amara will lose me, and I don't know what to do." Hearing her mother's voice tremble, Amara stopped drawing, her eyes filled with worry. "Mom, you're going to be okay, right?" she asked, voice quivering. Naomi wiped her tears, trying to smile. "I'll try, sweetheart." But Amara ran over and wrapped her arms around her mother. "I don't want you to be sick. Mr. Parker, can you help Mom?" Benjamin knelt beside Amara, his heart twisting. He looked into Naomi's eyes and saw how deeply she was hurting. He knew now was the time to act, not with control, but with care. Naomi said sincerely, "You don't have to do this alone. I found a house in Brooklyn, close by, with space for all three of us. There's a room for you to paint, one for Amara, and I can work from home. We can live together so that I can help you through this treatment, not to take over, but because Amara needs both of us, and I want to be there for you." Naomi looked at him, her eyes wavering between fear and hope. "Benjamin, I don't want to lose myself. I'm afraid I'll become dependent on you if I say yes." Benjamin gently took her hand, though she pulled back slightly. "You won't lose yourself. You're Naomi Johnson, the strongest artist I've ever known. I want to help you stay strong enough to keep painting and be Amara's mom." Still holding her mother, Amara looked up. "Mom, I want us to live together. Like I said at school, I want you to get better and Mr. Parker to be my real dad." Her words, innocent yet powerful, shattered the last wall inside Naomi. She looked at her daughter, then at Benjamin, tears streaming down her face. "Okay," she whispered, her voice trembling with courage. "We'll try. Living together. But you have to respect my boundaries." Benjamin nodded, feeling the weight lift from his chest. "I promise, Naomi. We'll do this together, one step at a time." He stood and took out his phone. "I'll arrange for us to see the house tomorrow. You and Amara can come too, to make sure it feels right." Naomi gave a slight nod, her first time not resisting the idea. As Amara returned to her drawing, Benjamin and Naomi sat silently. Not the tense silence of the past, but something new. A silence that hinted at a beginning. Benjamin watched Naomi gently brush Amara's hair, and knew this wasn't just about medical treatment. It was about Amara's dream, a real family. As he left the apartment, the Harlem streetlights blinked above him, and Benjamin felt the weight of a new responsibility. The house in Brooklyn wasn't just a home. It was a promise that Naomi and Amara would never have to fight alone again. Early sunlight streamed through the large windows of the new house in Brooklyn, casting light on the polished wooden floors and pristine white walls of the art studio designed especially for Naomi Johnson. The home, a warm, modern blend of architecture and comfort, had become a refuge for Naomi, Amara, and Benjamin Parker, following their decision to live together. In the studio, Naomi stood before an easel, holding a brush, attempting to paint a stroke of blue. Her hands still trembled, but today, she felt a flicker of strength, a result of the new immunotherapy, though it came with days of exhaustion and pain. The new treatment was grueling at the University Hospital in Manhattan. 3 days a week, Naomi endured long infusion sessions that left her fatigued, sore, and sometimes nauseous. But unlike before, she wasn't fighting alone. Benjamin, who once ran Parker Enterprises from boardrooms, now worked from a home office, always nearby when she needed him. Amara, with the innocence of an 8-year-old, became her greatest cheerleader, often bringing tea or sitting beside her to draw to keep Mommy happy. That morning in the kitchen, Benjamin prepared breakfast, toast and eggs, while Amara sat at the counter, chatting about her school science project. "I want to make a volcano erupt, Mr. Parker. Can you help me?" she asked, eyes gleaming. Benjamin smiled and set a plate in front of her. "Call me Benjamin, Amara. And yes, I'll help, but the eruption's all yours. Deal?" Amara nodded with a mouthful of toast. Naomi walked in slowly, but she smiled at the scene. "She's recruiting you for a big project," she said softly. Benjamin looked at Naomi and noticed the color returning to her face, even if the fatigue lingered. "He said you're looking better today," handing her a cup of coffee. Naomi nodded and sat down. "It's a good day. The meds are starting to work, but slowly. The doctor said it'll take months to know for sure." Her voice was optimistic, but her eyes carried a flicker of worry. Benjamin nodded, not pressing her. He had learned to listen, rather than fix things, like he used to. While Naomi rested after treatment that afternoon, Benjamin took Amara to a nearby park. There, they met Eleanor Parker, Benjamin's mother, who had flown in from Connecticut to meet her granddaughter. With her silver hair and stern demeanor, Eleanor had once disapproved of Naomi due to her background, but in recent weeks, she had begun to soften. Watching Amara dart about the grass, Eleanor smiled. "She reminds me of you when you were little, Benjamin, always full of energy." Benjamin nodded, but his eyes stayed on Amara as she chased a butterfly. "Amara, sit with Grandma," Eleanor called. Amara ran over and sat beside her on the bench. "Grandma, do you know my mom is sick?" she asked suddenly, voice small. Eleanor looked surprised, then turned to Benjamin before answering Amara. "Yes, sweetheart, I know, but your mom is strong, and you have your dad here to help." Amara bit her lip, her eyes worried. "I'm scared she won't get better. I don't want to lose her, like Lily lost her grandma." Her words pierced Eleanor's heart. She wrapped her arms around Amara and said gently, "Your mom isn't going anywhere. And your grandma, your dad, we're all here for you, okay?" Benjamin, standing nearby, felt a knot tighten in his chest. He realized that Amara, though always joyful, carried a fear she rarely voiced. He knelt beside her and took her hand. "Amara, I promise I'll do everything I can to help your mom get better. And no matter what happens, you'll always have me." Amara nodded and wrapped her arms around Benjamin and Eleanor in an unexpected, heartfelt embrace. That evening, back at the Brooklyn house, Naomi awoke from a medicated nap to find Benjamin beside her, reading documents on his laptop. "You don't have to be here all day," she murmured, her voice tired but teasing. Benjamin smiled and set the laptop aside. "I want to be." And Amara said, "I have to make sure you drink enough water." Naomi laughed, but the smile faded quickly. "Benjamin, what did Amara say to you at the park?" She looked worried when she came back. Benjamin recounted the conversation with Eleanor and Amara's quiet fear. Naomi closed her eyes as tears spilled silently. "I didn't want her to carry this burden. I've tried to shield her, but she's too sensitive." Benjamin took her hand gently. "You don't have to hide, Naomi. We're a team now. Amara needs to see us face this together." Naomi looked at him, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. I'm learning to trust you, Benjamin, but I'm still scared. Scared of losing myself. Scared I'm not enough for Amara. Naomi, Benjamin said, voice steady. You are an incredible mother, and you're stronger than you think. Let us help you, like you've helped us. His words touched something deep in Naomi. For the first time, she didn't pull her hand away. She nodded, a silent but significant agreement. When Amara entered the room, holding a new drawing of the three of them in a house under the sun, Naomi smiled and pulled her daughter into her arms. Benjamin watched them, feeling that this house was no longer just a place to live. It was a place where all three were learning to heal. Though Naomi's treatment still posed many challenges and the future remained uncertain, Benjamin knew they were finally on the right path as a family. Soft light from ceiling lamps bathed the Brooklyn Museum of Art exhibition room, where Naomi Johnson's paintings hung against pristine white walls. Tonight marked the opening of the Resilience exhibition, honoring artists who had overcome physical challenges to create. Naomi, dressed in an elegant black dress, stood in the center of the space, her heart pounding as she looked at her works, ranging from anguished brush strokes created during her illness to vibrant new pieces that reflected her recovery journey. Though grueling and filled with days of exhaustion, the new immunotherapy had brought results. Her hands still trembled, but on good days, she could paint for hours. Beside Naomi stood 8-year-old Amara, wearing her favorite purple dress and holding her mother's hand, her eyes glowing with pride. Benjamin Parker, in a dark blue shirt, stood nearby, not in the spotlight, but always ready to support. This exhibition resulted from a secret act. Amara, with Benjamin's help, had photographed Naomi's new paintings and submitted them to the museum, using his connection with a sponsor. When the museum invited Naomi to participate, she was both angry and touched, but she couldn't refuse the chance to have her art seen. The gallery gradually filled with critics, collectors, and Naomi's colleagues. One central painting, Family in the Sunlight, drew every gaze. 3 figures, a mother, a child, and a man, stood beneath the sun, with bold yet emotional brushstrokes that conveyed their reunion journey. A critic named Elena approached Naomi. "Your work is powerful," she said. "The transition from suffering to hope is vividly portrayed. Could you share the inspiration behind it?" Naomi smiled, her hand tightening around Amara's. "This is my story, about illness, about my daughter, and about finding strength again through the people who love me." Amara chimed in proudly. "Mom painted this for Benjamin and me. She said it's about us." The crowd chuckled softly, and Naomi brushed her daughter's hair back, eyes filled with gratitude. Standing behind them, Benjamin felt a wave of pride, but stayed silent, letting Naomi shine. While Naomi mingled with guests, Amara pulled Benjamin into a corner of the gallery, where a miniature painting was displayed, a portrait of Amara with a radiant smile. "Mom painted this when she started feeling better," the girl whispered. "I want her to paint you too, so our family is here." Benjamin knelt and embraced her. "I'm sure she will, Amara. You're her biggest inspiration." Amara hugged him tightly, and in that moment, Benjamin no longer felt like Mr. Parker. He felt like a real father. Mid-exhibition, Benjamin was unexpectedly drawn into a conversation with a young couple curious about family in the sunlight. Instead of discussing its investment value, he explained with a depth of understanding he hadn't possessed before. Naomi used vigorous brushstrokes on the edges of the painting to express her recovery, he said. The warm colors at the center represent love, the love for her daughter, and the family she's rebuilding. The couple nodded, impressed, and Naomi, standing nearby, overheard, her eyes filled with surprise and emotion. When did you become an art expert? She teased as the couple walked away. Benjamin smiled, his gaze gentle. I learned from the best. You. I want to understand what matters to you, Naomi. His words touched her, melting another layer of the wall she had built. She took his hand, just for a moment, but it was enough to signal the change between them. Amara saw and beamed, running to hug them both. Mom, Benjamin, this is the best day ever, she exclaimed. Later that evening, Eleanor Parker, Benjamin's mother, arrived, carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, Naomi's favorite. She had changed since initially opposing Naomi, but now she is moved by her resilience and Amara's love. Naomi, you make me proud, Eleanor said, handing her the flowers, and I'm sorry for doubting you. Naomi, surprised, smiled. Thank you, Mrs. Parker. This means a lot. Eleanor hugged Amara, whispering, I'm proud of this family, sweetheart. Benjamin drove Naomi and Amara back to their Brooklyn home as the exhibition ended. Amara had fallen asleep in the back seat, while Naomi looked out the window, cradling the bouquet. Tonight, I feel like myself again, she said softly. Thank you, Benjamin, for helping me get here. Benjamin glanced at her, his voice low. You did this, Naomi. I was cheering you on from behind. Naomi smiled, her eyes tender. You did more than that. You were there. Every step. Benjamin carried Amara to her room when they got home and laid her on the bed. Naomi stood at the door, watching him, and for the first time, she felt something more profound than gratitude. We've come a long way, haven't we? She said. Benjamin nodded, his eyes sincere. And we'll go even further, if you want to. Naomi didn't answer, but her smile was a silent promise, opening the door to their future. The golden light of late afternoon streamed through the maple trees in the backyard of the Brooklyn home, where a small ceremony had been set up with twinkling string lights and vibrant bouquets of sunflowers. Naomi Johnson, wearing a simple ivory dress, stood beneath the floral arch, her warm brown eyes sparkling as she looked at Benjamin Parker. In a deep navy suit, he smiled, his blue eyes unable to hide his emotion. Beside them stood Amara, now 9 years old, in a pale purple dress, holding both their hands, her face beaming like sunshine. Today, 2 years after the art exhibition that marked Naomi's recovery, they stood here to exchange vows, not just to each other, but to Amara, as a true family. Only a few close loved ones were in attendance. Eleanor Parker, Benjamin's mother, now a devoted supporter of Naomi, a few of Naomi's friends from Harlem, and Amara's art teacher, who had encouraged the young girl's gift for painting. There was no billionaire extravagance, only the sincerity of a family that had endured trials to find one another. The officiant, an old friend of Naomi's, smiled warmly. Benjamin and Naomi, you've both come a long way. What would you like to say to each other today? Benjamin took Naomi's hands, his voice low but steady. Naomi, I let you go 8 years ago because I thought success would fill my heart. But when Amara came into my life and saw you fight with all your strength, I knew this family was the most precious thing. I promised to stand beside you, not to control, but to help build dreams. Yours, Amara's, and ours. Naomi smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. She squeezed his hands, her voice gentle. Benjamin, I used to be afraid to open up, fearful of losing myself. But you were patient, learned to understand me, and you loved Amara as your own. I promised to be by your side and to face every challenge together, just like we always have. Amara, standing between them, raised her hand and said brightly, I have a promise too. I promise to make Mommy and Benjamin laugh daily, and I won't eat all of Benjamin's cookies anymore. The crowd burst into laughter, and Benjamin scooped her up in a hug. "I accept that promise, Amara," he said, eyes twinkling. The officiant declared, "By my power, I now pronounce Benjamin and Naomi husband and wife." Applause rang out, and Benjamin leaned in to kiss Naomi, a gentle, meaningful kiss, while Amara clapped and cheered. The wedding reception occurred in the yard, with tables draped in white linens, a chocolate cake, and jazz music, Naomi's favorite, playing through the speakers. Eleanor, holding a glass of wine, approached Naomi. "I was wrong about you, Naomi," she said sincerely. "You've made my son a better man, and Amara is the greatest gift. Thank you for letting me be part of this family." Naomi hugged her, eyes full of gratitude. "You are family, Eleanor. Amara loves you so much." "Oh." Amara, running around the yard with a few kids from Harlem, stopped by Benjamin and tugged his hand. "Benjamin, can I call you Dad now?" she asked seriously. Benjamin knelt, his heart swelling. "I've been waiting for this day, Amara. Call me Dad whenever you want." Amara hugged him tightly and whispered, "Dad, I know Mommy will stay healthy because we're together." Benjamin stroked her hair, the weight of fatherhood never clearer. The three sat together on a bench as night fell, gazing at the twinkling lights above. Naomi leaned on Benjamin's shoulder, her hand still bearing signs of illness, now stronger thanks to therapy and love. "I never thought we'd make it here," she said softly. "From that tiny apartment in Harlem, to this home, to you." Benjamin kissed her forehead. "We made it because you never gave up, Naomi, and because Amara brought us back together." Amara, sitting between them, yawned but smiled. "I knew I could do it. I went into Dad's office and now we're a family." They all laughed, and Benjamin pulled them into his arms, feeling every empty place inside him finally filled. He thought of the man he once was, focused only on his company, believing success was everything. His success was Amara's smile, Naomi's hand in his, and the family he had found after 8 lost years. When the celebration ended, Benjamin and Naomi stood at the door, seeing off the guests. Eleanor, the last to leave, took their hands. "Take care of each other," she said, eyes gleaming. "And call me if Amara wants to learn how to bake. She'll need someone besides Benjamin to teach her." They laughed, and the house fell into a peaceful quiet when the door closed. Amara was fast asleep in her room. Naomi and Benjamin stood in the living room, gazing at the painting, family in the sunlight hanging on the wall, the gift Naomi had given him after the exhibition. "We did it, didn't we?" Naomi asked, her voice soft. Benjamin pulled her into his arms. "More than that, Naomi. We found each other, and that's the best thing I've ever done." They stood there, bathed in gentle light, knowing that whatever the future held, they would face it together, as a true family, bound by love and eternal vows. Gentle autumn sunlight filtered through the trees in Prospect Park, Brooklyn, where the Parker family was having a picnic under the vast blue sky. Naomi Johnson Parker, now stronger thanks to immunotherapy, sat on a blanket, her hands still bearing signs of rheumatoid arthritis, but steady enough to hold a paintbrush. She was sketching a portrait of Amara, now 10 years old, who was running around with their newly adopted fluffy dog, Sunny. In a simple blue shirt, Benjamin Parker lay beside Naomi, reading a book about Harlem art, a continued effort to understand his wife's world. Amara's laughter echoed, blending with the jazz music playing from a portable speaker, creating a peaceful scene like the dream she'd described 2 years ago. 2 years had passed since their simple backyard wedding in Brooklyn, and the family had found a rhythm of balance. With her health improving, Naomi returned to painting and opened a free art class for children in Harlem, fulfilling a long-held dream. Though still running Parker Enterprises, Benjamin spent more time with his family, often working from his home office to stay close to Naomi and Amara. However, their most significant legacy was the Resilience Fund, established to support artists with chronic illnesses. Combining Naomi's passion for art and Benjamin's organizational talent, the fund sponsored dozens of artists, allowing them to keep creating despite their challenges. Today's picnic was not just a family outing, it was a celebration. The Resilience Fund had just awarded its first scholarship to a young painter with lupus, who would soon showcase her work at the Brooklyn Museum of Art, the very place where Naomi once shined. "I think she will make it," Naomi said, glancing at Benjamin as she continued painting. "She reminds me of myself, resilient but needing someone to believe in her." Benjamin smiled and set his book down. "Like I believed in you, Naomi. This fund was your idea, changing lives." Amara ran over, Sunny chasing after her, scattering leaves across the blanket. "Mom, Dad, look at Sunny. He dug a huge hole," she shouted, her face radiant. Naomi laughed, pulling her daughter close. "Careful, sweetheart. Don't let Sunny dig up the whole park." Amara hugged her, then looked at the painting. "Mom, that's me, right? I want to paint something for your and Dad's fund too, so it can hang at the exhibition." Benjamin stroked her hair. "You'll be the next star, Amara. I've seen that family portrait you did. It belongs in the museum." That portrait, now hanging in the Brooklyn living room, was a testament to Amara's budding talent. It depicted Naomi, Benjamin, and Amara under the sunlight, painted with innocent yet emotional brushstrokes, reminiscent of Naomi's early works. Inspired by her mother, Amara had started taking art more seriously, and Naomi was proud to see her daughter carry the artistic flame. "I want to paint like Mom," Amara once said, "but I also want to be like Dad, helping people." Amara's grandmother, Eleanor Parker, arrived at the picnic carrying a basket of homemade cookies. She had become an indispensable part of the family, frequently visiting Brooklyn to spend time with Amara and learning to bake from Naomi. "Naomi, I brought chocolate chip cookies, but don't let Amara eat them all," Eleanor joked. Naomi laughed and hugged her. "Thank you, Eleanor. You always make Amara happy." Eleanor sat down, watching Amara play with Sunny, her eyes soft. "She's a miracle, isn't she?" "I was wrong to doubt you, Naomi. Now I see this family is the best thing that's ever happened to Benjamin." Naomi nodded, eyes full of gratitude. "We're lucky to have you too, Eleanor." Benjamin, eavesdropping, said, "Mom, don't make Naomi cry. It's a happy day." All three laughed, and Amara, hearing them, ran over and pulled Eleanor to her feet. "Grandma, play with me and Sunny." Despite joking about her age, Eleanor let herself be dragged along, laughter trailing behind her. As the sun set, the family sat around the blanket, eating cookies and listening to Amara share her idea for a new painting for the fund. "I want to paint a park where everyone is happy, like today," she said, her eyes shining. Naomi brushed her daughter's hair. "That's an excellent idea, sweetheart. I'll help you finish it." Benjamin wrapped his arms around both of them, his voice low. "And I'll make sure it gets displayed where everyone can see it. We're a team." Amara nodded, leaning into her mother. "Right. We're the best team. I knew I did the right thing when I entered Dad's office. Now we have each other, and Sunny too." The family laughed, and Benjamin kissed Naomi's forehead, feeling a completeness he once thought impossible. He remembered the day Amara walked into his office, a tiny girl with a green folder, and how she had changed his life forever. As the moon rose, they packed up their things, with Sunny circling their feet. Naomi looked at Benjamin, her eyes full of love. "Today was Amara's dream?" she asked. Benjamin nodded, pulling her into his arms. "And mine too, Naomi. Thank you for giving me this chance." They stood together beneath the Brooklyn moonlight, with Amara and Sunny beside them, knowing that their legacy, love, art, and family, would continue to shine like the sunlight in Naomi's paintings.